Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we are going to talk about tethering and what tethering means and why it is really critical in the beginning phases of our ascension process to tether to reality. Tethering is basically staying tied to the physical world around you. Now, a lot of people mistake that as human realities or physical realities and fifth dimensional realities and above, or some etherical, energetic realities that you never actually are a part of, right? It's a huge misconception that higher line realities, higher consciousness realities, higher frequency realities are all ethereal and they are not exactly physical realities. And the physical reality is a third dimensional reality, which is not true. You can anchor in fifth dimensional and higher realities into the physical, bringing those frequencies, well, let me put that another way. You're actually taking your body frequency up to where those realities exist. But they're just as physical as the physical reality the human aspect creates. There's no difference in that. It's just a higher conscious reality. It's a soul aligned reality, but it's just as real. Now, I'm going to caveat that. None of it's real anyway. It's all our illusion projecting out. It's just a prettier illusion. It's a different illusion, but it's still just as, it feels as physical as the human world feels physical. So I want to kind of clear that up because you see a lot of people talking about fifth dimensional realities and, you know, that this realm, but we have to live in the physical world, which is just all over the place, you know, whereas the physical world you create, the consciousness you create it from is what gets mirrored back in the physical world. You can live in a ninth dimensional reality and have that physical world that you're living in. Just because it's ninth dimensional doesn't mean there's no physical component. We do a lot of work energetically. You do more work energetically. If you've created a ninth dimensional reality and you've vibrated into that with your consciousness and then with the frequency of your body, I will tell you, it won't be as busy as when you were in your human realities, in a sense. There's lots to do. A lot of stuff energetically we take care of ahead of time. So when we do it quicker, it gets done simpler. It's a flow to it. It's a different cadence and a pace to it. But it's still a physical reality. We don't go live somewhere else. We don't go live in some la la land somewhere else. It's still the same physical reality we've created. It's just a difference in the frequency of the reality. So, but we have to learn to do that. And we have to learn to anchor those frequencies in our body. We can all touch higher consciousness. Ascension is anchoring in those frequencies, anchoring in those aspects. That raises the body's consciousness. And in the beginning, when we're doing that, we need a tether. And we will have a tether because we no longer, the old way people used to talk about it would be grounding. We have to ground. We don't want to stay in the, you know, metaphysical world or in the higher frequencies. You have to ground back down. That's what you saw all the time, especially early 2000s. People talk about grounding, and that's not really what we do. We want to anchor. We want to bring those energies down to raise the physical body's frequency. We don't want to disconnect and go back into our physical body and ground back down into a lower frequency. That is not what we want to do. We want to raise the body's vibration by bringing the higher frequencies down. That's why it's anchoring, not grounding. So there is a difference there. And it's a huge difference there. So when you see people say grounding, just get rid of that in your vocabulary altogether. We're not grounding, we're anchoring. We're bringing the higher frequencies down. We're bringing them into the body and the body's frequency is raising up because it's being exposed to that higher frequency. And then we can construct a reality around that. Now, when we first start getting into the higher frequencies though, before we have remembered how to anchor, while we hold them long enough, the frequencies are so different. They are so high that you will find yourself having tethers. And you don't go out and look for a tether. You don't go out and go, boy, I really need something to tether me to the physical reality. Because remember, every higher consciousness reality we create becomes a higher consciousness physical reality. But when we first start, we do need something to kind of keep us in the physical realm and not how do I want to say this? And not so into the higher consciousness all the time without anchoring it in. So the tether keeps us in the physical world, but not of the physical world, if that makes sense. But you will just have people assigned to be your tethers. You will have friends that are not in the consciousness you're in, but in the beginning they don't so much have to be, because their role is to tether you, keep you in the physical reality while you're exploring the higher realms, while learning to anchor them in. Because we don't remember right away how to anchor them in. We just feel like we kind of get lost in it a little bit, and it's all beautiful frequencies and beautiful everything, and we float around, and we just need to tether back to the physical world so we can learn to anchor. And until we learn to anchor those realms down, we have tethers. But they're not to keep us away from the higher aligned realities. They're not to keep us away from the higher frequencies. They're for us to explore the higher frequencies and still keep a foot in the physical realm, because the physical body and the physical realms are where we want to realign. You know, we're not going to live in another planet. We're not going to live on somewhere else. Higher aligned realities, higher consciousness realities, higher frequency realities are just as real as human consciousness, human frequency realities. They're no different. People think physical realities, 3D realities, they're different in a sense. The consciousness is different, but we still live in physical realities no matter what consciousness you're in. So tethering is something you will find, and you'll know as soon as you start feeling into that tethering word, you'll know who your tethers are. You know, it could be if you have children, your children might act as your tethers. If you have friends, I used to have some friends that acted as my tethers in my early years, and I didn't even realize that's what they were. Because I kept thinking, why do I still have people that are not conscious in my reality when I'm trying so hard to become more conscious? Really working on raising my consciousness, surrounding myself with higher consciousness. Why do I have any unconscious people still around? Part of it's a lot of reasons why. You know, some we still are clearing those aspects of ourselves. We still have kind of a foot in both worlds. You'll see the tethering a lot when you're in that fourth dimensional reality, because you're touching the fifth dimensional reality with your consciousness, but you're still living in the third dimensional reality with you're still living from that human consciousness reality. So you're kind of in this fourth dimensional foot in both worlds. And the tethering helps us stay somewhat, I do not want to use the word, I guess anchored is the other way to put it. I probably already used that word, but anchoring, it kind of just keeps us, our feet planted in what we're trying to create, in the sense of it has to be a physical reality. We're not going to get lost in higher consciousness realities that we cannot. The whole point of ascension is to bring them in and to create them. It's not just touch on them and then there's some kind of dream world or something we're going to one day see. You know, tethers are important in those years because they do keep us engaged in physical reality, and that's important until we learn how to anchor and rearrange everything, and then you don't need tethers anymore. And sometimes those people's roles will change. Other times they'll completely go away. Mine completely went away. The friendships went away because they weren't going to raise their consciousness. It wasn't their time yet to do that. So they weren't going to be on that journey with me. So if they're not going to be on that journey with me, then there was no point, you know, in continuing the relationship, because the tether was no longer needed. We learned then how to anchor in those frequencies down and not to stay lost in those dreamy frequencies. Though we do want to expand into them, we also have to keep one foot on the ground in a sense, but not grounding. Anchoring, not grounding. Tethering. To keep us reminding kind of what the end goal is, which is to bring it in. Not disconnect and float around and never bring it in. A lot of people think that's it. We just disconnect, we float around in the higher frequencies, and you never shift your life around. But that's not ascension. Ascension is ascending your consciousness and your body's consciousness too. Now, we talk on this channel about how ascension is, you'll see it as death of the ego. You know, your ego is no longer in charge. It ceases to be in charge anymore. And a lot of people will talk about because it is death of the ego, but because you're in an ascension process, in a conscious ascension process, it's not death of the human body. Whereas a lot of people, when they're in a conscious ascension process, they'll see their body age up to the age they would have died at, and they start de-aging. You see this mirror in people that have decided they're not going to ascend their consciousness and they're going to die, and then ascend their consciousness in another body at another space in another time. Everyone goes through ascension. They either go through it here or go through it somewhere else, but they're going to go through it. So you see that mirror. You see a lot of people right before they pass away. People will say, boy, they just de-aged. They look 15 years younger, and the next day they were gone. Because they're getting in the higher frequencies. The veils start to dissolve. They start to see things they couldn't see before. A lot of times their tethers will be gone. It works the same way. It's kind of, we talk about mirroring realities. It's the same thing. We're experiencing ascension we're experiencing the ego death and the physical death in a mirroring dimension, in a sense. So when people begin to transition out, you see a lot of people where one person will die, and then if they were together a long time, the other person will go very shortly after. Because in those realities, that person acted as their tether. It was why they were here, in a sense. And once they're gone, they have no tether to keep them in the physical reality. So then they pass away because they're not going through ascension here. So you will see that so much when you get into people passing away very close in the same time because they were tethers. And once that person's gone, the other person goes too. And so when you start looking at ascension, and like I say, it's a higher frequency of watching a physical death and all the things that'll happen. Memories start to go, we start to forget things. We don't remember what's going on anymore. We don't remember timelines we were in. And we have physical tethers too, and when we no longer need them and we're going to our next level of consciousness, we're raising our vibration, anchoring that in, we don't need the tether anymore. So we don't become dependent on the tether, because we're never supposed to be dependent on who's tethering us. It's just for us to... I'm trying to think of another way to explain it. I've explained it 15 different ways, but I feel like there's still another way I can bring in that might kind of make it a little more palatable. We can't get attached to the tether. A tether is not a cord of attachment. It's not a reality we're attached to. If we allow a tether to become a cord of attachment, then it never was a tether. It was always a cord of attachment. We don't want to let the reality go. We don't want to let the person go. They're doing us a service by tethering us to physical things, and not physical things like, money or any of that kind of stuff. Tethering us to a reality. And, it's not going to be the reality you keep, but it's tethering us to, there is a reality going on around us. And ascension, it's very easy in the beginning to get so consumed by so many things going on. Your gifts are opening up, you're hearing, you're feeling your field. It can be overwhelming. You're touching on so many different frequencies. Higher frequencies, which are so different than human frequencies, and you're hearing things, and you might have a lot of physical body stuff going on. You might just have a lot of confusion going on. You don't understand, and it's such a beautiful space to be in. Colors are brighter. You're experiencing the world in a different way. But because we haven't had to rearrange worlds and anchor anything in yet, we haven't had to rearrange our realities, which is when we start anchoring these realities in the body, is when we start rearranging things and realigning realities to those new frequencies. So we haven't started doing that process yet. We're still in this process of just, woo, it's so beautiful, It's love and light and everything's airy and fluffy and soft. And it's a critical part of our ascension journey to be in that. But without a tether, you get kind of lost in that, and you never understand the importance of shifting the world of which your physical world around. And that's what the tether does. The tether shows us there is an importance to the physical world. It's not the one we have in front of us right now. We're going to rearrange that one. But the whole point is to bring it in, to anchor it in. That's the point of it. It's not to just float around, disconnect, and let me go back and live my human life. So tethers are critically important in our beginning stages. Until we realize how to rearrange, realize how to anchor, without, and understand what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to anchor. Then our tethers will go away. So if you thought someone was a tether, probably right. If you had never heard of the term until now, it'll get you something to think about, because a lot of times we don't understand why people are still there. And like I said, there's a zillion reasons why we still have people in our reality. We're still clearing stuff. They're mirroring something in us. There's still something we're trying to transcend. Sometimes they also act as a mirror of what we shouldn't do. You know, if you have someone who is really in their human consciousness and they're giving you advice, you know you're going to go the opposite way. So they serve a lot of purposes. But like I said, I remember I had a couple of friends. I never could understand why. Why are these realities still here? And then I heard someone say the word tether, and I'm like, that's what they are. They're tethers right now for me. They're keeping me somewhat engaged in a physical reality. Like I said, it's not the one you're going to keep. You're going to rearrange the whole damn thing to a higher frequency. But we haven't learned to do that yet. So they still show us the importance of having a physical reality. And kind of like our end point is to take these higher frequencies and bring them down and make the body's vibration increase. And all of a sudden now we're going to have a new reality materialize around us that's going to match our frequency. So when we're talking about tethering, when we're also comparing and watching people who are ending their human life in a different fashion, and they're going to go on and ascend somewhere else, you start to see the similarities between ascension and the death of the ego and death of the human body, and why they are intertwined. Because when your ego is running the show and the frequency of your human body is the ego's frequency, then when the ego dies, the human body dies. So when you start going through ascension quickly, because now it's your time, and now you're going to go through it quickly, the body will go with it. And that's why you see so much comparison, and you'll see so many similarities in people who are getting toward the end of their physical journey and they're going to ascend somewhere else, and people consciously going through ascension. It's very, very similar in a sense of different things they'll go through. And tethering is just one of them, but you will see so many parallel tracks there, and you start to understand what's going on. You start to understand that, oh, they're starting to disconnect. Oh, and there's not a coincidence what starts happening to the human body as the body starts to break down. And that's what happens when we're in our ascension process. Our human body will break down, and it's getting realigned, and it's getting recalibrated to higher frequencies. But that's a conscious thing we're going through. We agreed to ascend in this human body. Others did not agree to ascend in their current human body. But you do see a lot of the ascension parallels there. So I think that's about all I want to say about tethering. I can't think of anything else I want to bring in. To hint at who is your tether, you will know exactly who your tethers are. You will know, and if you're past the tethering phase where you needed a tether, you'll be able to look back and go, oh, I know who they were. I now understand why that relationship was there. One of the reasons that relationship was there, and I understand that they acted as my tether. And we have a lot of love for them, because they do help us and assist us in that moment when we just kind of need that shoulder. We need that footing a little bit. When we first start flying, we do need a little bit of a footing to see kind of the end goal. Even at that time, we don't understand the true beauty of the purpose that they're there for. So, okay, keep practicing the art of intuition.